Hello, my favorite people. I would like to introduce you to one of my favorite human beings of all time, the only person who can compete with me at loudest typing in the world.
No.
Oh, yes.
Not possible.
Nimkish has, you think that, but if you
I want to type off.
If you had seen us next to each other, it was like two of the same person making thunder with our fingertips. And that sounds rude, but it's not rude. It's just what happened. Nim and I have known each other for years. She's one of my favorite. And just for the record, Nimkish is she, they. So I just wanted to make sure that we did honor those pronouns. And actually, I have a question about that, which I know that you're very, very good at being a pioneer, thought leader, and ambassador for all things that are wonderful. So I love that we get to have some behind the curtain conversations with you today. But Nim and I went to, we did an artist development course together some years ago. We'd known each other before that. And we just, and I now call her my Nim twin. And I am so proud of my friend. And if you look, you'll see Nim actually on the original Bombshell Brunches trailer where we had a brunch, and I called Nim and I called Raquel, and I just called our best friends and we're like, we need you to do this thing, and everyone was just like, didn't ask a question and was like, okay, we'll meet you there. So here's the introduction to Nimkish, because otherwise I'll just talk about Nim the whole time. To fully immerse in the multitudes of Indigenous rising star, Nimkish is to honor the past, look ahead to the future, and bask in the resplendent presence all at once. The Vancouver-based marvel in the making is fearless in her lyricism, confronting anti-Indigenous racism and colonial violence alongside other hard subjects like anxiety, grief, and heartache. To the great tradition of singer-songwriters healing through their music, Nimkish brings a bright-eyed aim to flourish in all she has experienced. Stylistically, Nimkish exists in a realm between Kehlani and King Princess, softly orbiting Sabrina Claudio. Claudio? Claudio.
Claudio.
Thank you. Her lyrics give affirmation to past pain while living in the moment. To some, it may sound like escapism. To others, it may sound like movie-driven R&B-pop pulsing through the club. What's certain is her fortitude. She's an it girl on a mission.
Wow, that was a great reading.
Can I please be your official voiceover artist?
Yes.
That was a great bio. I mean, there is more to the bio as well. We'll put the full bio later. But Nim and I are both very wordy and nerdy, and it's one of the things that we really connect on. And we did write a song, which at some point needs to come back to life.
That's so true.
About how we were all, how so much of society is words and not action. And so without further ado, welcome Nim.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. As Christina mentioned, when you launched and you created your trailer and your video, we sat down and had brunch together, and it's been so great to see your podcast come to life since then.
Thanks.
So lovely.
Yeah, you're the best. So walk us through. Let's talk about music first. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to get into a lot of stuff, but walk us through the journey in music, because I want to know when you started. I mean, I know when you started singing. I want to know when you started writing, and then when you started singing, and then when you decided to take that leap to go full time. And what helped you get there too, because there are a couple shout outs that we'll probably throw in.
Sure. Okay. So I've always been a writer. I've always loved English. In high school, English was my favorite subject. I've always written poetry. I remember I used to get sad and write my high school boyfriend poems to try explain how I was feeling, because I couldn't put it into words, I guess. So that's always been kind of an outlet of expression for me. And I always tell people I haven't always been into music. My family's not super musical. And what really made me turn to music and decide to take it seriously and decide to kind of, bring it into my life in the way that it is now is that I used to play hockey, and that was such a big part of my life. And it was so structured. That was all I did. I took it very seriously. And then when I quit that, I had this huge hole in my life. And that's when I turned to music to fill that hole, because I knew I was passionate about writing. I was passionate about music. I was passionate about the artists that I liked, and I loved watching artist interviews. And I just loved watching my favorite people light up when they talked about music and how much they loved it. So that's kind of when I decided to take those skills and pick up a guitar and try to transfer that into music.
I love that. It's so funny because Raquel and Nim, you know this about me as well. Like both of us actually came from sports backgrounds as well. So approaching your music career as an athlete, I think we've had this conversation before. And I think the foundation of whether it's exercise or, I mean, you were very competitive in your hockey playing, and Raquel and I were both in our respective sports. You create this, you have this attitude and you have this like passion and this dedication to your craft and into really honing in on it. Like I remember when you bought that white guitar and you were like, this is what I'm going to use for everything now. And I'm going to use it and use it and use it until I'm great at it. And it was, I think you had an acoustic guitar before that, right? So you had started doing, I'm just going to fill in the blanks of your story because I can. Anne's Alive is a local place, and the Anza Club is the venue here in Vancouver, otherwise known as the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations, correct? And so we had both known about this club, and a friend of ours, Jess Vira, put on a night called Anne's Alive, which I think, did you win the first iteration? You were one of the finalists in the first, or one of the first ones?
Oh, I don't even know if I ever won, but I took part in that showcase. And actually, Jess Vira just started that up again. So I went like a few weeks ago and checked it out. And it was really nice to kind of just go back. I didn't go up. I just went to watch. And I really miss doing stuff like that through the pandemic, because that was kind of like my livelihood before the world shut down. Like I was always at a show. I was always either like at an open mic or just like out on the scene, meeting people, connecting with artists. So it was nice to, first of all, see Jess because she's amazing. But it was great to check out the open mic again after all these years.
Yeah, it was a platform. It was a step up in one way, but you had a lot of irons in the fire. So when you started, you at the same time after you graduated, you went and started working with Rob Thompson at Full Circle First Nation. So what were you doing there?
Wait, graduated high school?
No, from a program, from an audio program.
Which program? Okay, so wait, how did you decide you were going to go into audio? Because that's where I'm really curious. So this was like an outlet for you. And then where were you like, I'm actually going to pursue this and go to post-secondary school for audio?
So I decided actually first to go to a very short 4-month intensive songwriting certificate program at Langara. And that's kind of like, I took that step, I paid for it myself, and I told my family, like, give me this 4 months. Let me see if I enjoy this, if I like it enough to take it seriously. And my family at the time was actually like not super down for it, because my family on my dad's side, they're all super academic. They all have PhDs. They were professors. So they weren't very like happy to hear that I didn't want to study and that I wanted to go into the arts. So that's really, I went to that program. I met some cool artists. I learned the basics about songwriting theory, even music production and performance. And after graduating that program, I was like, I love this. I want to take it seriously. I want to study more. So that's when I decided I wanted to go to audio school, because I wanted to be able to speak the language in the studio. I wanted to be able to, really understand what I was doing in my own music, even if I wasn't producing it myself. And I really, through that, got connected with a lot of the people I create with now and that I still create with today. So it really helped to be surrounded by like-minded people and to kind of have that motivation when you weren't feeling it, to be surrounded by people that wanted the same things as you and understood that it took the work to do that. And that's actually where I met Christina, and I had such amazing mentors at that school, including Christina and Raquel, who is
Not
also
me.
really
Other
amazing.
Raquel.
Not you.
Other
The
Raquel.
other Raquel.
As much as I would love to take the credit, not me.
Yeah. So that was invaluable. It was amazing. I met Christina. So how could it be better than that?
Oh, you know
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, this is why
Yeah. So it was good. I had great instructors there, and I just remember looking up to Christina so much, and the way she carried herself. And
which is exactly how you carry yourself. So she really wasn't looking up to me. She was just looking across to me. And that's what we realized is that I was like, who's this amazing badass person? And then was like, who's this amazing stomping person?
Stomping.
I would stomp through the halls.
You do stomp.
I do stomp. I stomp. I can't help it. Like, I really do. There was a running joke at Nimbus, and when Kentia started working there, she would be like, oh, yep, Christina's on her way. And it would just be like, apparently, like everyone knew my footsteps. They started to like copy it. It was rude, but hilarious.
Yes.
But I love that, Nim, you always had this, and thank you. I just adore you so much. You were one of my original fire friends in this city, because it was, it was lonely. And I think you and I have a very interesting upbringing where we have really had this strong passion to make social change happen. And with parents who aren't necessarily musical or not necessarily versed in the way that we want to impact that change. And I think there was a lot of solidarity between you and I, and a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, while we were navigating like how to deal with life. But what I love about what Nim just said is you love language, and you wanted to support yourself through the language of the music production. And I wish that I had done the same. I wish that I had a better understanding, because now you're you're starting to speak on producers lounge level conversations and talks about producing and creating your own sound. And so one thing I wanted to highlight in this career journey was that Nim had this exceptional eye for visual detail as well. So like before anyone was using Canva, Nim was exploring different mixed media forms. And I think that is testament to really getting into the whole career. Because nowadays, and Nim, you were one of the first people that did it, where a lot of people in the past would say, I want to be a singer, and therefore I'm going to learn how to sing. Nim has always been a creator. So Nim has always been a content creator, and the medium is not the most important thing, in my opinion. When I see the product, I see the message as the most important thing. So how that message comes out depends on what type of artist you'd like to be. But you were really very intentional about learning how to do the graphic design, how to communicate for yourself in terms of your messaging, in terms of your music. And then you picked up, like, you started singing. You've only been singing for what, 5 years?
Yeah, like not that long.
5 years.
Yeah.
You picked up guitar when?
Same
5 years?
time. Yeah.
So for you to go from doing that to being on a billboard in like how many playlists right now? I mean, what did Heartbreak on the what was your latest release that had like just so many streams?
My last album was Damage Control, but I had 3 singles in that rollout, and the first one called YSB did really well, and it set us up for a great album release, which was really exciting. So
tell me how you found your team. Oh, sorry, Raquel, I keep interrupting.
No, that's okay. I wanted to know what goes behind that. So you're talking about how it sets you up. Yes, the team, but also all of the steps. Like, how much are you doing yourself? How much, if you have a team, who's your team and what are they doing? And how do you launch basically a new album or a single, whatever it is that you're launching?
Okay, so I will answer that question, but I would also like to touch on what Christina just said about kind of embodying every part of the art form, because for me, I think that's super important for artists, and that's part of the process in which I go through when I create music and when I start dreaming up concepts for albums. It's really embodying every part of it. So like Christina said, I'm passionate about content creation. I do all my own graphics. I'm very heavily involved in the production. I actually am listed as an executive producer on the last project because there was so many like moving parts, and there were so many visions that I had. And because I took the time to learn about production and to learn about those type of concepts, I'm able to communicate with the people that I work with exactly what I want. And if I can't do it myself, I'm able to put it into words to let them know exactly what I want. And I'm there in the process for every step of the way. And then I'm also really like passionate about creating my own content. I know a lot of people create their own content, but I find that me and my best friend Mac, who do a lot of my content together, really like leveled up this year through the pandemic.
Did you? Because the last few videos I got from you, I would not.
You're not supposed to know about that.
I get a very private side of Nim and Mag that makes me absolutely rack my brain as to what happens inside their minds. Anytime.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely like our relationship is super special, we'll say that. But yeah, we do everything together. We write together, we create the content, and we really took the time to, I guess, learn more about lighting this year and really try to level up our content. Even if we were just shooting on an iPhone, we were finding ways that we could really make those things look good. There was all these online performances. I was taking those videos seriously. Like, I wasn't just gonna set up, point and shoot. I really wanted to make the sets look great, and I wanted the lighting to look great. I wanted it to sound great. And those are all skills that I developed when I kind of looked at what I wanted to be, who I wanted to be as an artist. And I decided that like I needed my hands in everything if I was going to do this. I'm a very big Virgo. I like things done my way. So like, it's just hilarious. Like, I don't think I could let other people do my graphics and stuff. And it makes for a very hectic release time because we're like gearing up to release. There's all these things to take care of. There's like the content to create. There's a single rollout. There's like just posts that need to be made, and I'm sitting there like running around with a chicken with my head cut off because I'm like trying to design the album cover, and I'm trying to make all the content that's actually going to be posted, that's like story content, Instagram content, Twitter content, whatever that is. And it's just like it's a lot, but I love it. I think that that's like a very exciting part in the release. So when I start thinking about an album, I conceptualize it first, and I ask myself, what is it going to be about? Like, how are these songs going to tie together? Like, what is the sequence going to be like? So yeah. And then with this particular album that I just released, I was so lucky because Cameron, the executive producer that I normally work with, so I worked with him on my first two albums, and I met him at audio school. We were best friends, and then we said, let's make some music together. Ended up making my first album. And then when we sat down for the second album, which was hilarious because it wasn't that long after the first one that I was like, let's have a meeting. I want to talk about the second one. And he was like, all right. And I was like, if I can have you, like, if you'll do it. And we sat down at the food court in Metrotown, and I said, I love working with you, but I think if we're going to evolve the sound, make it bigger, make it different, and not make the same album twice, that we need to bring more people in, because I love collaborating. I write with Mac a lot, but I knew that like we needed to bring people in, or else the sound was never going to evolve. So, and that's when I met Rob, and I had started working at Full Circle, and I was doing work on the industry side and the Indigenous music scene. And I was just blown away at the excellence that exists in this community, how amazing our artists are, how capable we are, and how many artists there were out there like me making similar music and writing similar songs. So that's when I made that decision, sitting down with Cameron that day, that I really wanted to involve Indigenous creators in the process specifically. Like, there were people that I'd wanted to work with from audio school for a long time, but there was Indigenous producers that I really respected, that I wanted to work with. There were Indigenous artists that I wanted to feature on the album. And I kind of started building a blue sky for myself. Like, if I could have everyone that I wanted to have on this album, who would it be? And I started reaching out to them, and most of them said yes, which is really exciting. And we got to create a super special project.
Why do you think they said yes to you?
Because
that's
I'm
not
awesome.
A trick question. Apart from you being you.
Yeah, I think I built really good connections with people, and I think that's a really important part of the industry too, is really focusing on relationships and, you know, caring about these people for more than just like music reasons, and
more than just what they can do for you, right?
Yeah. So
yeah,
totally. So that by the time I asked, like, hey, do you want to hop on this creative project, it was a simple yes. Like, it was easy. We were friends, and it's easy to work with your friends.
We had a podcast recently with Matt Neutra, who's the lead experience engineer at Bose, and who you two will get along so well when he visits. So we'll go have brunch or dinner or both. But he talks a lot about, you know, always depositing in the people around you's social piggy banks, the relational piggy banks, right? And he has this conversation, and actually, you know how important it is for me to build community, not because you want to build community, but because it's important to be generative in our thinking, so that the future is what we want to participate in, rather than what was just systemically given to us. And I think that's a really, really big point. And the reason I asked that question is because at the time, and this is what I say to people, I'm going to just switch straight into career pathway lens here, but when you have built ongoing relationships with people and made it very, very clear what you stand for and what your values are, it becomes very easy for much higher level in your mind, they might be higher level people, to work with you, because they can immediately go into everything that you've done and see your actions and recognize that you are aligned with their values. And I think that's one thing that you inherently do exceptionally well, that I'm always proud of, because you don't boast about it. You don't talk about it. You just do it. And so when you say, you and I have both had conversations with people where you know that they are wanting us to be involved in a thing because we are a certain walk of life, let's say. That is okay, but it's also super tokenistic. And I think really establishing for everyone out there who's listening, who's setting out in your career, understand what the gift of generosity actually is, in that you building your career is about aligning with value aligned people. And you do that very well. So I just wanted to highlight that, just as people are thinking about, how do I navigate as a creator, as a creative, even in my 9 to 5, how do I build these relationships? And the reality is, you don't build them for an outside purpose. You build them to be a part of them. And you do that very well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. And that being said, I believe that when you put what you want out into the universe, and you know who you are, you know your vision's strong, you will attract your team. Raquel was asking, how do you build your team? And a lot of people ask me that. How did you find your manager? How did you build a team? Who's on your team? And it was less building, like you said, and it was more attracting. It was more welcoming that into my life. And when I had a strong vision, I attracted people that had that same vision and that aligned with it. And I was really lucky to build my team for this project, because I released my first album independently, and I had finished this album. It was ready to go, and I was ready to self-release it. And my first album fell across my manager's desk at the time, and he reached out via email literally like a few weeks before I was going to start rolling out the album on my own. And he said, I just listened to Heartbreak on the Coast. I love it. I'd love to talk to you about, what you have in mind for your career, and do you have any new music coming out? And I was like, yeah, like in a few weeks. So we set up a call. His name's Matt Ma, and he runs an Indigenous led label out of Toronto. And I think the call was only supposed to be like half an hour or so, but we ended up talking for hours. And we were just like, first of all, super surprised we hadn't met before, that we hadn't heard of each other. But second of all, just like excited to get to know each other and talk about my career and what what vision I had, and my vision has always been very big. And he was looking for mainstream worthy, I shouldn't say worthy, but mainstream pop artists that were ready to use this country as a springboard, who wanted to go international, who had a big vision. And I was like, that is exactly me, like to a T. I'm so glad I met you. And he said, you know, can I listen to the album? And I said, sure. So I sent the album to him, and he was very excited. He called back a few days later. He was like, okay, let's work together. Let's get this moving. And it just, the timing was incredible. And his vision aligns with mine. I believe in what he's doing at Red Music Rising. So it was just like very in line. It felt like the universe was really like making a pathway for me. And I jumped on that opportunity, and he's been really great to work with. And we started building our little team, and we have pretty much just me, him, and Noreen, who is my publicist. She is incredible, definitely Wonder Woman. And I love it. I love my little team. We're both very committed to the work that we're doing, and they respect my vision a lot, which is really all you can ask for as an artist with your team, people that understand you and respect your artistry and don't step on your toes too much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what it's like, because I was reading your bio and you're talking about how you're putting your emotions into your music.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like for you, it's almost like a cathartic process. Like the music is there, but it's also this processing of things that you've gone through or are going through. How do you protect yourself when you put that out there? Like, how do you ever get anxiety when it goes out? Like, I've just put myself on a platter for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think specifically, like with both of my projects, I wrote about like really personal things and used that outlet of expression as a form of therapy. And I was super vulnerable with both of my albums. Like my first album was about my queerness and me falling in love with a girl for the first time, and like how that was messing with my head and what that experience was like for me, from the good parts to the bad parts. So then putting that out was very scary for me. And she actually showed up to the release party, so that was even more scary because I had to sing the songs in front of her. But
did she know?
Yeah,
did she know it was for her or about her?
That's so funny. There's a song on it called She Don't Know. I don't know, you know, I don't know if she knows, but I think she knows.
Now she knows.
I know.
Yeah, she probably knows now. Yeah.
I was at that release party. In my mind, I'm like,
she knows. Yeah. But yes, of course it's scary. And with this second album, I was writing about like really personal experiences I was going through with grief and losing family members, specifically my dad and my newcomb, who were pillars in my life. So by the time we reached putting it out, it was just kind of like a whirlwind, getting it put together and then getting the team jumping on. And then all of a sudden we're putting this music out. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. In a way, it's a relief. But of course, it makes me nervous. It's really vulnerable. We are vulnerable as artists. And you have that kind of time before you release something where it's only yours. And it's like really comforting to kind of know that it's yours. And if you're proud of it, that's even better. You're kind of just sitting with something you created. No one's seen it yet. And it's not really open to interpretation. But once you put it out, that's kind of all you can do. And then you can just hope that people resonate, or that they like it, or that they'll love it, which is what you hope for. So yeah, it's definitely nerve-wracking, but in a way it's like that release is like letting it go, and it's off your chest after that. So it's a bit of both. It's amazing, but it's scary.
I love that. Do you do anything, I guess, to like calm your nerves or to create a safe space for yourself? Like, do you have any daily habits or anything that you just use to guard yourself a little bit or keep yourself a bit more protected?
Well, my family grounds me incredibly. Like, I call my grandpa every night at 9 p.m. I guess that's a like daily habit. And he is just like a rock in my life. He always knows what to say. He's really good at giving advice and listening. But I also like, I write in a journal. I've always believed in the power of manifestation. So that's part of my life, my daily life. I incorporate it in many different ways. Christina was saying, like, I was always playing with visuals on like Canva and stuff. I actually like I take manifestation to a whole new level with that. Like I'm always like photoshopping or like making my vision come true. Like for example, like, oh, I want to be in a magazine. I'll like make a fake magazine cover and put it as my phone background so I can like see it every day, and I'm looking at it every day. And it's hilarious. My one friend, like, he keeps noticing them. Like one time I photoshopped my singles into the Billboard top 10, and my friend, we were out and he was like, what is that? And I was like, oh yeah, he's like, is that the Billboard charts? And I was like, yeah. It's this,
the
like,
future Billboard charts.
It's like this fake billboard I made for my manifestations. And he was like, oh, okay. And then he saw another one the other day. I forget what it was, but I do those things for myself, and I really take manifestation seriously. And I truly believe that's why things are going so well for me right now, is that I put in the work to manifest. I rewired my brain to think about what I want, knowing that I can have it and that I can have whatever I want. So the law of attraction has been a part of my life for a really long time, since I was playing hockey. Because there used to be this mentor I had when I'd go to hockey school in the summer. His name was John Lee Kutnikoff, and he would have us meditate, and he taught us about manifestation. And at the time, all the boys thought he was just like they thought he was cuckoo. And no one liked going to that class, and I loved it. Like I loved that lecture. We would like sit and meditate and like visualize our games going well. We'd like visualize ourselves scoring. We'd visualize ourselves skating fast and all that stuff. And that's kind of, I guess, when I was really young. Like I must have been like 11 when I started learning about manifestation, and I didn't know that it would be such a big part of my life. And I actually emailed John Lee Kutnikoff like a few years back, and I said, wow, you had changed my life. Like I want you to know that I've never let go of your teachings, and I just continue to build on that and learn about what you taught me when I was like 11. And it's like brought me so many blessings in life. And I think that it's just an important part of even my career. And when I have a vision, I know I can have it if I manifest it and I put in the work. I think that's an important part of manifestation, is doing the work to make that happen and making space for those blessings in your life and welcoming them in your life. And that's an affirmation I tell myself often in the morning. It's like, I welcome whatever blessings today brings me. So yeah, I guess that's,
I love that. I walk on whatever blessings today gives me.
Yeah. So those are the things
that
ground me, really. Yes, it's a great affirmation.
Did he get back to you? Just side note.
Yeah, he did.
So cute. He must have been so happy. Can you imagine, like, as a teacher, just how heartwarming that would feel?
Yes. Yeah. He's probably like, I don't even know how old he'd be now, because he was quite old when I was younger, but he did respond, and he was very happy.
What was his name?
John Lee Kutnikoff.
Kutnikoff. Mm-hmm. John Lee Kutnikoff. Thanks, John Lee Kutnikoff.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. So, okay, so we talked, so this is you manifesting and in front of the lens. So Nim, you and I do very, very similar things in that, for me, I like to say I very intentionally spend 50% of my time in front of the lens and 50% of my time behind it. And I think it's so important because we have such a high, I wouldn't call it necessarily attrition rate, but we have such a misconception of what this industry of entertainment is. And we also lose a lot of people who have this kind of all or nothing mentality towards it. On the other side of things, we also have, in my opinion, an artistic responsibility to make sure that we are being advocates at the same time. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to get to this point and then I'll help. I'm going to do this and then I'll help. And you have been an amazing testament to not being that person and to standing alongside me, watching me completely. I mean, you're one of the few people that has actually watched me burning out on a constant basis, and us talking about this together.
And it's good no matter what. Either way, very cool to be doing it through.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Nim, you are now, so you started working with Full Circle First Nation. So I want to go back to what they do, and talk about that, and then talk about this recent, finally, you decided to step into, put yourself up for the board of directors for our local music industry association, Music BC. Shout out Music BC. And I was on the board for about 3 years. And one of my secret, not so secret dreams is always to make myself obsolete. So I always want to get into a room and immediately figure out how I can get someone else in so I can leave and find the next big room, and then open that door. And I say that a lot. We want to knock on the door of opportunity, be grateful to those, if we don't get in, who let us in, hold space in that room, and then hold the door for others. And you do that very, very well. Tell me about Full Circle and what Full Circle does to build this community as well. And then tell me about your decision to stand up for the board and why you chose to do that.
Well, first of all, to speak to what you just said, I think something that really stuck with me is I was at a panel, and I think it was Raquel's event, Woman Rising, which was one of the last events before the world shut down that I went to. And it was really inspiring. And one thing they were talking about on this panel was knowing the difference between a mentor and a champion. And you are definitely a champion for that very reason that you were just saying, is you're always thinking about who else can fill this space after I leave. And I've learned a lot of what I do from you, and because you're awesome and you're always thinking about other people, and Kentia is also like that, and so is Raquel, and Rob is too. And I'm just very blessed with a lot of champions in my life, and I feel like they lead by example. I learn from them, and then I am able to also do that good work. So sorry. With Rob at Full Circle, I have nothing but great things to say about Rob. I'm very lucky to have him as a mentor on the business side of things. And a lot of people don't know that I'm super involved on the business side as well, and that part of the industry has also been very important to me, because I don't want to say it's a safety thing. I think it's important to me to be fully immersed in what I'm doing, and it's important to me to understand every side of what I'm doing. So like with the business side or the industry side or the arts administration side, I never knew that it'd be such a big part of my life, but I'm glad that it is. And when we were talking about building real relationships earlier and how important it is, like you'll never know when that relationship will turn into a job opportunity or whatever it is. And that's exactly what happened with Rob, is that we met through the community, we had a relationship, and we were friendly with each other, and he booked me for a Full Circle show, actually a songwriter show. And I went, and I didn't like the graphic they made for it. so I made my own. And when I got to the show, Rob was like, oh, like, by the way, I really, really love the graphic you made. Are you open to kind of doing that professionally in a setting for us or something like that in the future? Let me know. And I was like, yeah, I love it. So I'd definitely be open to that. And that was the conversation that night. And a few months later, he reached out via email and said, we're looking to hire someone to do kind of a paid internship with Full Circle and do graphics and social media, and kind of to mentor administratively about arts administration. And is this something you're even open to? If you are, let me know. And I was like, never thought about that. Like, I guess, yeah, like at the time I was really manifesting stopping serving at the bar I was working at. I really just wanted to be making money off creative things, whether that be like graphics or whether that be, I don't know, anything music music that wasn't serving. I was getting so tired of serving. So yeah, that was a blessing that at the time I had welcomed into my life without really thinking about it or knowing how it was going to truly manifest in reality. And he offered me that internship, and it was only supposed to be, I think, 3 months at the time, but it grew into something more. And now I've been there for 3 years, and it's been incredible to be mentored by Rob. He's taught me so much about what it means to build community, and we've done so many amazing things together on that music team. So I feel very blessed.
And Rob is an incredible musician as well. Like, incredible. I went to see one of his shows, and I just was blown away. Like, he just honestly is like incredible human being, so talented.
Very humble too.
So humble. Like, I was like, oh, it's, you know, my friend's show. Like, I like to go and like see what they're doing. And I was just like, oh, the whole time.
Yes.
Because to me, it, you know, being a multi-instrumentalist is something that I'm like, whoa, I'm just like, my whole mind is blown. And Rob does a lot of like looping and really cool experiments with, like, he plays bass, I think, primarily, but then he just like, he just does all this he's just so musical. It's like, it just courses through his veins, right? Just the same with you, Nim, and like your way with words and your musicality is like, it's such a different flavor of artist than what we're initially taught an artist should be, or like old school artist should be this way. And I want to go back into that for a moment, because I think you just touched on one of my favorite points that I detest about losing people in the industry to serving jobs. I know when I was growing up, I always thought, okay, I don't want to get into an arts administrative or like a music or creative position, because I don't want to get trapped there. And I don't want them to think that I'm you know, if I go and work for like a big label, then they'll never listen to my music, because I'll be really good at filing and organizing. And I knew that. I know that sounds weird, but I know I'm good at organizing stuff for people. And Nim is the same. And I think I want to lead into this question in a minute, but I think we have to, as a society, change that narrative, because what you did was you inherently built your own ability to be a holistic artist, and then you transferred those skills and you recognized what you could do for others at the same time and get paid more for it and participate in your industry. But the difference between you and me is that I didn't create clear boundaries. You really did. And so what you did that I loved, and I joke about the fact that I harassed you for so long to join the board of Music BC, because I left the board this year very grateful that I no longer needed to be there. I knew that I didn't want to be there anymore, because I didn't have to, in my mind, not to anyone else's. Like, I mean, they would have been fine no matter what, let's be totally honest. But I did what I went there to do. And I had been harassing you because I was like, if Nim is on this board, I don't have to be there. It was such an ultimate, and she knew it. That's exactly how I opened it. I was like, can you? And I asked a few other people, and I was like, I have a few people that I'm like, please just, so I want to go and explore the Vancouver Asian Film Festival, other stuff. But the point is, you said no, until finally I think you were ready and you knew that you had your artistic world moving, and then you added that piece. So when people are putting together their creative careers, whether it's a 9 to 5 and they're navigating through you know, trying to upskill and get into a more senior position or something that's more beneficial for them, what did you do, and what was your decision-making process to know that and how did you create those boundaries to really honor your artist, but participate in the other side so that you could actually do both really well? I know that's a tough question, but I never get to ask it, because there are so few people in the world still that are able to do it so well.
And wait, the other side being making money, advocacy, or career? What's the other side? For Christina,
what you're referring to? Oh, sorry. So creation, so
in the other side,
in front of the lens, behind the lens, and that can be whatever you choose behind the lens. So in front of the lens is for me it's performing, and then behind is the advocacy and and both should be making money, ideally. And that's where Nim is rare, where both me and Nim make probably comparable salaries on both sides, right? Which is super rare.
Yeah, okay. I think
yeah, good clarity question though, because you're right, I did not articulate that.
You guys are talking up here, but if people aren't in the music industry, they're not gonna understand.
Raquel's like, hey,
let's bring it back.
This is public. Thank you, lady.
But yes, how do you create those boundaries?
In between the two, you're saying, right? Like, how do I draw the boundary? Yeah, you know, sometimes I don't. Like, this year we did so many festivals. We did 4 talking stick festivals essentially this year, 1 in each season. And I remember like they asked me to perform at the spring one, and I said yes, but I shouldn't have. Like, it was too much to focus on a performance but also run the festival. Like, this is one of them. Well, it happens every once in a while. Like, I completely messed my schedule up, and that's what happened when I performed trying to also run the festival, is that I completely forgot the day that it was happening. And I'm so lucky that they ran really late. And my friend Jess texted me and said, hey, just so you know, we're running late, so no rush. And I was like, I got up so fast, and my little brother was like, what? And I was like, I'm supposed to be on stage in like 20 minutes. And I like was running around the house like a mad woman, trying to get dressed and ready, prepared for this performance.
Does Rob know
that's a nightmare? That's a nightmare.
That's know. Like it was. So when people ask me like at the most recent talking stick if I was performing, I was like, I'm not doing that again. Like I cannot handle both those things at once. So I think that's like a good lesson in knowing your boundaries. And I probably should have said no, so that I could be present on the festival side of things and just focus on that. But I think the boundary between both, it's sometimes pretty blurry. Like that arts administrative stuff is really important for artists, and I don't think a lot of people know that. Is like there is so much time you spend as an artist replying to emails and getting contracts signed and putting together, you know, like your kind of artist package, like sending bio, photo, artist statements over. And that's why it's so great to have a team, but a lot of people don't have that luxury at first. So, you know, it's important for artists to be professional and to reply to their emails and to be on top of that type of stuff. And a lot of people don't think about that. And when you start getting a lot of offers and a lot of bookings, it's like, that's literally why people hire booking agents and why people have managers to deal with that. But, you know, like there's always that kind of stage as an emerging artist where you don't have that. And it's like really important to have that administrative skill, I guess.
I wanted to ask if on the administrative skills side of things, because Raquel and I talk about this, we nerd out about a lot of workflow things, and Raquel's brain works very different to mine. So like she wants to see things on Trello, and I'm like, I want to see it in a really long, what she calls like a document that's scrolling of death. And
they're so awful. I'm like,
they are great.
My brain is just like, I don't want to be in here anymore. I go somewhere else.
And she literally every time will be like, oh, you just do this, and she'll literally look at me and go, yeah, cool, or scrolling or whatever, and then she'll just move on. I'll be like, oh. And then she'll be like, but we're gonna do this on Trello. I'm like, but I'm already doing it. And she's like, yeah, in the scrolling document of death.
Don't worry.
Yeah, and I'm like, stop texting me, because I have different boundaries of how I'm like, I don't want to see this. And she's like, hey babe, here's a thing for later. And I'm like, it's Sunday, I just wanted to.
Raquel is like, oh my gosh, is this what it looks like in your head?
Yeah. Whereas Nimkish is like, oh yeah, that is what it probably looks like. I can totally imagine that as Christina's brain.
So funny.
But what do you use? Because we have different workflow techniques. So just on a purely technical level, like do you use a bullet journal? Like how do you organize your workflow and deal with some of that like boring admin stuff? Like do you have what do you use? What systems do you use?
Well, I mess up sometimes, definitely. My publicist has been mad at me lately because I keep screwing stuff up with all this virtual stuff. I put things in my calendar, of course, but there's a lot of moving parts in my life right now. There's the Talking Stick Festival. There's like some work I'm doing for like just grants and outreach and stuff with stuff with grants. I don't know how grants became such a big part of my life, but they did.
With your grants or others?
Yeah, grants are huge.
For yourself or for other people?
For both. Both. Yeah. And then there's my artistry, and then there's just like my social life, and then I take care of my little brother, and there's like making time for my family and stuff. So yeah, I use my iPhone calendar actually, which I think drives my team nuts because they use Google Calendar, and I'm over here in my own little iPhone life.
I am going to help you help yourself. Okay. Get off your iPhone calendar. Google Calendar is so much better. It is so it's just color coded. It is. I promise you, from my brain to your brain, as my Nim twin, I think it's important for you to go away from this conversation and tell your team
go make a Google Calendar.
that Google Calendar now gets a trial.
Noreen will be very happy about that. Anyway, yes, I use a calendar. I used to write everything down in an actual journal, and I made the switch to the like digital calendar when I had Talking Stick and I had all these things going on. And it was actually Rob was like, just use your phone, because I was like messing some stuff up. Like I'm not perfect. I I missed that performance one time, and with all this virtual stuff, I obviously write down the recording date, but I keep forgetting like the date it airs to write that down too. So yeah, it's hard to keep track of that stuff. But when it comes to conceptualizing albums and having projects like that, I make spreadsheets, and I have Google Drives that I share with the whole team, with all the producers involved, with Cameron specifically. Me and Cameron always have like some type of master document for the album with checklists and to-do lists, and just place where we can both jam on what's going on together so that we're on the same page, and deadlines and stuff like that. And so yeah, like for example, with my team, I have a master damage control folder where we have like all the press photos and all the lyrics and all the video stuff, all the video content, all the graphics I make. And it's just like really important to keep that stuff organized and available to your team when they need it. So if they need something, they're like, hi, can you pop this in the drive ASAP, please? And those are skills I learned at Full Circle through working with Rob. And you know, organizing a festival is no easy task. It takes a lot of work and a lot of organization, a lot of communication. So those are skills that are completely transferable to my music career and the way I work with my team when I'm creating, recording, and then when we get to like the rollout side, when there's like all this stuff to do, and it's just like popping so many things up into this drive so that the team can review them and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that you're organized like that. And I think that that's one of the big things, again, as anyone who's in any creative industry that requires you to produce projects, and often yourself, like if you're DIYing, and even actually like for us, like Raquel and I have learned with Bombshell Brunches, as we're moving and as we're learning to scale, you know, Raquel said something and I was like, what do you mean? I've got all these folders. And then she was like, yeah, but not everyone can access all of these now. And that was fine when it was just you and me and we were just running our things and we were both logging in, but that's not what's happening anymore. So learning how to create scalable administrative systems, and then taking the time to be able to actually look at them again and say, is this still working? And then bring your team in and say, is this still working? That applies to any entrepreneur of any kind at any level. When you're like, if you really want to level up all the time and continue to scale and bring in the team, putting that work in at the beginning and knowing your workflow process is like, it's so important.
Totally. And I think like a timeline with deadlines is so important when you're making music, because it's so easy to, well, with any project, like making an album is, you have to have some project management skills. Like there's no way around that. And if you don't, then things will just slip and slide away from you and you'll never get it done. Like, so for me, it was like hard to do that during a pandemic, is like in a specific project where I brought a lot of people in. So there were so many moving parts. I was being sensitive to the fact that like we're in the middle of a pandemic and I'm asking a lot of these people to, you know, be creative when the world's on fire outside our windows. Like I was very understanding. Like if say like I had a friend play violin on it, and I think like 3 times she was like, I can't do it today. I'm just not feeling good mentally, and I'm not in the space to be playing, and I want to bring that space. I want to bring that energy when I come. And, you know, like I of course was understanding of that in a year like this. Like whenever someone wasn't feeling it, or they said, I'm having a hard time creating right now, or I'm having a hard time writing this, I'm having a hard time getting this track done. Like you have to be understanding of that when we're in the middle of a pandemic, but at the same time, you have to kind of keep nudging everyone. And with this project, which involved like 30 people, probably by the end of it, it was a lot of like communication and hearing people out and like giving them that space to not want to create if that's how they felt that day. So there was a lot of pushing deadlines back, but I think having that deadline still, even if you have to push it back, is super important, because that's how people operate, right? Like if you don't give people a deadline, they're just not going to do it until they have to.
Yeah, I love that project management piece is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think the deadlines too are so important. Like, so we had, at the company I used to work with, they had brought in consultants, and they were telling us that majority of people, if you give them a deadline, they will start at the halfway point. So that's when they're going to start working on it. The whole first half. So if you give them 2 weeks, 1 week in is when they'll actually pick it up, look at it, and start on it. And so I think that that deadline piece is so incredibly important, but also that ability to be flexible, especially in creative fields. It's so important. Even I was listening to a podcast with Brene Brown, and she was talking about the book she recently wrote throughout the pandemic, and she was saying the same thing. Like it was so hard to write through the pandemic. That was just taking such a toll on everyone. Yeah.
I know I have talked to so many artists about how they're feeling, and like for me, it was kind of nice, like because the timing was like I was pretty deep into the project, I was deep into the album, and then the world kind of shut down, and I had that chance to kind of just retreat, stay home and work on it. But I felt lucky that I had that creative energy to do so, because a lot of people didn't. And I've heard of artists like that say they didn't even write one song, or they haven't worked on music the whole year, and that's fine too. Like for me, I was finding comfort in it, but there was a lot of people on the project that were like having trouble. An example is my first single, YSB. It took us a year to like finally get that going, and I was supposed to get Ascension out here. Like we had funds to fly her down so that we could collaborate in person, which is obviously the way I would have liked to do it, and to meet and to talk about our actual lives. Like when I'm writing with someone, I want to hear what's going on in their life, see if we can relate on anything, and blah blah blah. And we didn't get to do that, so it was hard to like not meet each other. We had the concept in our mind, but I know she was having a hard time writing to it, and I just was able to give her that space because I totally understood. And then when we did get around to it, she killed it. Like it was awesome. And then it's so funny because the same thing happened just now. Like I finally met her on my trip in LA. I just got back. I went for the weekend, and same thing. We were working on a song of hers, and I just couldn't do it. But then and I felt bad because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm doing the exact same thing to you that you did when we were working on Damage Control. I just couldn't write to it. I don't know what it is. I had lots of ideas going. And then when I got there in person and we sat down, it took me like, I don't know, maybe like 20 minutes to write the verse.
Wow.
So wow. Yeah, I think being in person really helped, but it's just like that sometimes. You can't really force creativity, especially when it comes to lyricism, and you want to get it right. If you're asked on a project, or for me at least, and I'm sure most people feel this way, is like you really want to bring it. Like you don't want to like half-ass anything. If someone's asking you to be a part of their art, like that's such an honor. So for me, I was like, I can't do this if I'm not feeling it. And I know that's how she felt too when she was working on YSB, but it comes in divine timing when it's supposed to happen. So it was really nice to meet her and to get in the studio together. It's just like, you can't beat that feeling. it was nice to collaborate through voice notes and stuff, but it's not the same.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what a wonderful way of like wrapping this up, is just saying that, you know, divine timing when it's meant to be, but also prepare yourself at every step.
Yeah.
So Nim, I know we didn't talk about Music BC and the board, and obviously there's not a ton to talk about because you've just been newly elected. So I would suggest that we all go and continue to follow Nim on Instagram and really take a page out of that beautifully written journal that she has given us, audio and visually, at this stage. And I just can't wait. I'm just so proud of you, Darlene. I'm just so proud of everything that you're doing, and you just continue to impress me. And I love that we get to keep inspiring each other, and that's really what this whole thing is about, and what you and me have always been about. So I'm so glad we got to spend time.
Very true. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't wait. I want to bring you back on to talk about activism and everything that you're doing with Music BC. So we'll need like a part two.
A part two. There's so much to cover.
So many parts.
All of the parts.
Okay. All right, my darling. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, bombshells. In order to continue to elevate, subscribe and don't forget to click that little bell so you can get notified every time we have a new badass brunch. Until next time, stay focused, fierce, and fabulous.